Welcome back to
Appreciate it.
another fighter interview. I'm here with your fighter, Joel Faglier, fighting out of Fagler MMA in Augusta, Georgia. Joel, how you doing today, bro?
Doing good, brother. Feeling good. Feeling blessed.
Yeah, man. Hey, I like the chain. I like that you're rocking it. You got some style on you. Um, yeah, man. So like a week after your fight, you're fighting Ose Abunaw for the NFC. You are 3-0 with three finishes. So you are certainly a dangerous opponent for Ose. How do you feel about this matchup and what are some things going through your head for this matchup?
I feel great about the matchup. I'm really, really excited to test myself against a high level striker like he is. I respect his striking and his grappling at the heavyweight division is very good. So I'm excited to go out there and test myself with one of the guys I think is better in the region. And I know he's dangerous as well. I've seen him put away fights with devastating strikes. So I'm excited. I pride myself on being a finisher as well, so I feel like we're gonna go in there and we're not going 3 rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely expecting a finish. It's been a minute since you fought for the NFC, man. So, how do you feel coming back to be fighting back in Atlanta?
Yeah, man, it's exciting. It's exciting. I've been active this year, but not very active in Georgia. Um, I fought. I just fought in Augusta in July, and I hadn't fought in Augusta since I was a teenager. And I had my first MMA fight ever for the NFC in Atlanta. So it's nice to kind of come back as a professional, as a grown man, and really put a product out there that I'm that I've been working on. Developing a game, not the first one being a jittery kid out there just swinging for the fences.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue, man. So, like, I'm curious to know about the history of the Faglers in combat sports, man. Like, you guys are obviously a family of fighters. So, kind of walk me through like the day you started training in combat sports to, I don't know, almost to this point.
Man, in the womb, you know. And so my dad started out. Um, he was like the first fighter in our family, and he opened up a gym in '98 or '99, and he's been running the gym ever since. So I started. I came home from the hospital in a gi, like came home from the hospital in a gi, started out, uh, started training realistically about 4 years old in the classes that he ran and everything, and then just moved on up from there. Trained, did jujitsu tournaments as a kid. Obviously, my older brothers, Jason and Alex, they both competed in mixed martial arts as well. Both were champions. Jason's still competing as a professional. Um, so like just going through all that, like did jujitsu tournaments up until I was about 10 years old. And then whenever I got into middle school in eighth grade, my brother Jason took me to the wrestling coach's house and asked if I could wrestle on the high school team. So I started wrestling in eighth grade and just took it from there ever since. Wrestled through all through high school. Took my first MMA fight at 18 in Atlanta at center stage for the NFC and fought. And then just in between each semester of college during the summers, the summer breaks, I would just fight. I would wrestle in college during the winter and in springtime, and then whenever it came down to summertime, I'd hop right in, take a fight, jump into camp, fight, then get ready to go back to school. I finally just graduated here recently, so once I graduated, now just full time into MMA and made the professional jump this year. So yeah, it's been a long road, but I'm very blessed, and to be able to do it with my family. I've done it with my family, with the same team. My dad and my brother's been in every one of my fights. They've been in my corner every single time. Like, and it's the same group of guys. Quincy, Malcolm, my brothers, my dad. Like, same group. We just been adding more killers.
Yeah, Fagler's MMA is in my opinion, the most dangerous gym in the Southeast. Um, Maybe don't have the all the UFC guys that some of the gyms maybe in North Carolina or Florida has, but obviously is super scary, right? And Quincy, not Quincy, excuse me, Malcolm just got into the UFC himself. You've seen a lot of fighters come through there, and you've helped mentor a lot of fighters into that aspect too. So, you know, something I want to ask you is you've been training for so long, uh, but obviously you've wrestled in college, now you're fighting as a pro. You know, how what is like a big lesson that you've been able to learn from each stage, you know, as an amateur, taking that first MMA fight, going to be a collegiate wrestler to now being a pro MMA, you know, what has been an important message throughout that you've been able to learn from your mentors and something that you've been actually being able to pass down to the guys you mentor at the gym also?
Mm. Man, that's a deep question. That's a good one, but I have two answers that come to mind. The first one is, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like we're trying to do this for the long haul and compete at the highest levels for a long time and consistently be one of the elites. And in order to do that, you have to build a strong foundation of first of all, a good stable of technique, and then a certain level of physical conditioning, and then to get yourself mentally and spiritually ready to compete at that level, to compete with the best guys in the world. It it's not something that's going to happen overnight, Like Rome's not built in a day, but they lay a brick every day. And the biggest thing that we preach with our fighters, and they've it's been put on me, is like just because you're not in fight camp doesn't mean you're not training. Like fight camp is just tuning you up to get ready to compete, but all that time in between is whenever you're adding things to your game, you're expanding your arsenal, you're getting better at different things, forcing yourself in bad positions and pushing yourself to do things in training that just really isn't comfortable. If you're not a good grappler, force yourself to grapple. If you can't escape a triangle, put yourself in triangles. Like just those things that it's a marathon. We are really trying to build a whole complete fighter and a complete person. And neither one of those things are going to happen in a span of a month or a year or 2 years. It's a decade long type of commitment. So that one for sure. And then the other one is, this too shall pass, like the good times, it's great. You're smoking people, you're running through everything. You look like the baddest guy around. This too shall pass. Like you feel like you're the worst fighter in the world. You feel like you can't land a shot in sparring. You feel like you can't outwork these guys in the room. Your cardio is fading, or you got some injuries, or whatever it is. This too shall pass. It's not going to stay around forever, right? You got to be able to take the ebbs and flows of this game because that's exactly how it is. It's up and down, up and down. And the guys who leave this game, whether they got everything they wanted out of it on the accomplishment side, the guys who leave with good memories and not being bitter are the guys that can take those ebbs and flows.
Man, those are some heavy advice that I feel like something I feel like I needed to hear too, Joel. So I appreciate that, man. Um,
I'm just
you
prepared,
know,
brother. That's all the stuff that my dad's told me and my brother Jason's told me. That's it. I'm just repeating it.
yeah, it's amazing to see your family, like you guys carrying on that legacy with each fight, and of course you're getting all these finishes and Jason coming back into fighting again. It's just amazing to see, and you guys have generations of experience now, and now you're passing that off to other guys, and I think honestly that's what gives the Fagler MMA guys the unfair advantage is the generational experience that not a lot of other camps have. Um,
Mhm.
fighting in different eras, fighting in different sports, and then mixing all that together. I just think it's very fascinating. Um, your camp is obviously very uh, spiritually and bonded by faith. What is a lesson? Uh, what is a lesson from your faith that you hold dear to your heart and that you implement in your training and your fights?
Oh man. Um, that's definitely a deep one too, because I think I think fighting physically and your walk as a fighter and your walk spiritually as a Christian is very much the same, right? Like they're very similar. And I mean, Paul continuously refers to different athletic events to the faith, to finish the race, to run like you were trying to get a prize, And I think I think one of those they're one and the same. I think um one of the biggest lessons I can get from it is there's a season for everything. It's written in Ecclesiastes. It talks about, there's a season for war and there's a season for peace. There's a time for rejoicing and there's a time for sadness. And I think the same way like this game is, like it's up and it's down. And as long as you're not tethered to the result of what it is, like the result of I gotta win, or I gotta do this, or I have to have this many followers as an athlete, or I gotta have this many sponsors, whatever it is, like if you're not tied to the result, then you live a much calmer life. Like I'm not as spun up as I used to be about competition. Like it's just my trade. It's what I love to do. I love to compete, but I'm not tied. My self worth isn't tied to the season that I'm in. Some seasons I'm going to be competing very heavily. Some seasons I'm going to be coaching very heavily. Some seasons will be the spoils of war and victory, and some will be in defeat and they're tough. But God remains the same through all of that. He's good all the time. He holds me up with his right hand all the time, and it's not like my faith isn't based off of the victories and the defeats, you know. And I think whenever I let go of that pressure of it being on me to have like to get a victory or to do something, it stopped me from pulling the trigger sometimes, and it would allow guys that I felt like I could really dominate stay in a fight with me, or stay in a wrestling match or whatever it is, right? But as soon as you let go of the result and you just focus on being the very best version of yourself, letting your offense go to the highest level, throwing your best strikes, pushing the pace as hard as you can. Those things, winning is a byproduct of those things.
Very well said. You've had three pro fights now. Looking back at all three, you've been able to get two first round finishes and a second round finish. Um, what has been the lesson you've been able to take away from the three fights so far? And are they any different from your amateur days or your collegiate wrestling days? How are they different now?
Oh man, they're so much more fun. Like it's don't get me wrong, I loved my competition time as a collegiate wrestler, but MMA was always the goal. And that was just something that a competitive outlet that allowed me to push myself, acquire another skill set, and get a degree. Those were big things. And the other aspect of it is like I loved fighting as an amateur, and it served its purpose to get me calm in those tough times. To have those tough fights, to fight the best guys around the country, and then moving into the pros, like it's like unleashing chains. You know what I mean? Like it's just taking off chains. Now I can throw elbows to the head. I can throw knees to the face. I can really let my offense all the way go. And man, 5-minute rounds compared to 3-minute rounds, that's a lot longer to work. And for me, I feel like as time goes on, it benefits me, to to really get my motor going, to really start reading people and picking my shots and then really letting the pace start to wear on people. Those those are probably some of the biggest takeaways. And knowing that, I can compete as a professional. There's always those questions in your mind if you can do it or anything like that. To know that I belong in the ranks with professional fighters like, my brother Jason, you know, because this is all I've ever wanted to do. Like I didn't want to be like a football player when I grew up or be in the NBA or anything like that. Like I wanted to be a professional fighter and that was it. And now to be a professional and get paid to compete, it's a dream come true. It's all I've ever wanted.
Looking back through some of your or your older Instagram posts, something that really caught my eye was a picture of you and your brother Jason, and he's got all his belts from all these different promotions, and you have your NFC title around your shoulder, and the caption read, um, you know, I realized now that I have a belt of my own, I realized I really never wanted to be a champion. I just wanted to be like him. So how has your brother played as a role model in your fight game? And what does it how does it feel now to be chasing the dream of being the best together?
Man, it's he gave me the blueprint, you know. For one is that like the whole time as a kid, I went to every one of his fights, you know. I was his size whenever he was fighting as a grown man, but like I was there for all of them. So I watched him cut weight. I watched him go through training camp. I watched him not say no to anybody who wanted to fight him and then go and compete against the best guys in their hometown and still come out as a champion, you know. So just he gave me everything I needed to see it and how I wanted to live my life. So there was no questions. Like he gave me all the shortcuts and then I really did like I wanted to have my own belt so bad. And when I finally got that title, it was like when you get to the top of the mountain, you're like, I'm not saying I'm anywhere close to the top of the mountain in MMA, but I reached a little summit there and I looked around. It's like, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. Like, I just really just wanted to be like him. And then being like him, more than that, he's a champion, but more than anything, he's a good person. You know, he's a good man and he's a good husband to his wife. He's a good dad to his son. He's a good coach and a good friend and a great brother. And those things are by far and away more important to me now. And I didn't realize like how important that was, you know, like to see him have a championship and to be draped in glory with all those belts and be the number one amateur in the southeast and still be kind enough to take his little brother around everywhere he went. You know, like that kind of stuff, that humility that he walked with is what I strive to emulate in my life. And now that we're both professionals and we're both competing, the dream for me is to co-headline a show with him. You know, like I made my debut as an amateur on a card that he headlined. I made my professional debut as a in fighting on a card that he headlined. And so now I think full circle. I just want to co-headline. I just want to be the co-main event. Whatever show he's on, whatever title he's going to get, I want to be just the co-main event. You know, just to be right there with him. That's a dream come true.
Yeah, hey, you heard it here. Conflict, NFC, Fury. Let's make it happen, man. I want to see both of the brothers as the main and the co-main. I think everybody's gonna want to see that, and I think the town's gonna show out. So let's have it in Augusta. So that means it's conflict, man. Let's
Yes.
do it. Let's do it, Jared. Come on now. I want a conflict show in Augusta with the Fagler brothers headlining that main and co-main. So that sounds like a dream event for the hometown, man. You know, obviously you have a lot of people looking up to you, not just the fighters at your gym, but also the kids that you coach at wrestling practices too. So, you know, what is a message that you want to send to these guys, as they continue in their athletic career, whether it's wrestling or MMA or whatever it is, even if it's not sports, what is the message you want to leave them with?
Man, um, how you live your life comes out in how you compete, and by far and away, it's more important the character that you have over the accomplishments. Like to be to be a world champion and to not be comfortable in your own skin, to not be a trustworthy pillar in your community, to not be a friend that someone can count on, or a man of your word to say, "Hey, I'm going to be here at this time," you know, and show up at that time, or "Hey, man, I'm sorry, I messed up. Make no excuses. Come right back in and do the right thing." I think if they take anything from my athletic career, um, is two things. One is John 3:30. He must increase, and I must decrease. And when John's referring to Christ, like that's what I want my athletic career to be, is to Christ to be increased and for me to be decreased. To just lift up the name and be just a tool. Whether I'm a mop or a hammer or whatever it is, like just be a tool used in furthering the kingdom. And then other aspect of it is it's not about the results. Like it's really not about the results. It's not about the accolades. It is the character that you possess. Can you walk as a man with your head up high and your chest out and be okay with what you see in the mirror, and to know like your team, your family, your friends, they can count on you. And that by far and away will be the most important accomplishment of your life. You know. Then like being a champion just adds to that. But if you're a world champion, you can have 200 world titles and you don't have that aspect of your life in order, you'll never feel complete. And I hope that they see in me that chasing this thing is not chasing the world. Like trying to chase this world title. I want to be that, but not at the expense of my soul.
Very well said, Joel. And with all that being said, too, by the way, I never got to congratulate you. Congratulations on your engagement. I know this was a little while ago, but I
Thank you,
apologize for
brother.
not leading with that. And obviously, with your fiance now, obviously you have more weight on your shoulder. You have other things to be fighting for too. So, I want to ask you, for 2025, obviously you have this fight in 1 week. Uh, but I want to look a little bit more into the future. And in 2025, what are your goals and both personally and within the cage also?
hmm Yeah. Um, I appreciate the congratulations, man. Thank you. Um, First of all, ready to get married in March. That's going to be a great thing. Become a husband. That's other than fighting. To be a husband and a dad. That that's all I've ever really cared about. So to check one of those off the list is just an amazing thing. But for 2025, however this fight with Ose goes, I know I'm going to go out there and compete the very to the very best of my ability. I'm going to bring action and violence and a high level fighting IQ, and I'm going to execute. And wherever the chips fall, they fall. And that's the same mindset that I'm going to take into 2025. You know, Whoever it is, wherever it's at, are we going to execute at the highest level? That's the goal. And ideally, I put myself in a position to compete for a professional title next year and to co-headline a show with my brother. Those are like the two biggest things.
Love it, man. Love to hear that. Before I let you go, Joel, any last shout outs you want to give out to people you care about, sponsored, anybody?
Mhm. Yeah, man, I want to shout out my sponsors, Kimura Gang. They've been taking care of me. Master Cuts in Augusta takes care of me. El Rey, the taqueria in Augusta, they take care of me so well. Gold's Jim Evans, man, they McDoubles, wrestling, graphics and everything, man, they take care of me real well. So, all those guys, I appreciate it. I couldn't do it without their support. Goat Kit Coffee here in Augusta, they just added on as a sponsor, man. So I really appreciate the sponsors that helped me chase this journey, and then my family. My family, whether they're nuclear family, really close, like my fiance, my dad, my brother, and just everyone at Fagler's MMA and Backyard Bullies Wrestling Club. Man, could not, I couldn't do it without them, and I wouldn't want to. I mean, there's no part of me that wants to jump ship and go to another gym or another place. Not saying anything bad about anybody who does something like that. Just these are my people. I want to do it with them, and however it falls.
Absolutely. And then from myself, thank you to all the sponsors that make all of our fighters' dreams come true. We appreciate you supporting their journey and allowing them to chase their dreams to be the world's greatest. So make sure you tune in to NFC 171 live at the Battery to watch Joel Faglier fight against Ose Abunaw. That's next week. This will be a banger fight. I don't think it's going to go all 3 rounds. I think there'll be a finish at some point. So make sure you tune in. Joel, thank you for your time today.